an inventory rebate provision. And I'm going to think of this in, so if I think of a grocery store so everybody can visualize this. If you think of a grocery store and you go to the supermarket, if you think about, if we group the products, we've got fresh produce, so milk, bread, vegetables. These are all fast moving items. And when we think about the overall layout of a supermarket, they maybe occupy 1/3 of the shop floor of a supermarket. But they don't occupy 1/3 of that supermarket's buying. So in this scenario, we've got the fresh produce actually at 50% of their purchases. We've got a little bit of seasonal items, and then I called them canned goods. But yeah, we've got 10 million of spend in the longer life products. The rebates differ. This fresh produce in my scenario is more commodity type priced items, so there's slightly less rebate behind it. You get into these products that sit on the shelf a bit longer, there's more incentives to try and buy it, so there's bigger rebates. So the business spends 15.1 million in the year. They earn just over 2.1 million in rebate. So they have a rebate rate of 13.9%. So everybody's happy with that. You're going to come along and, you know, this is part of your debtor accrual. You'd have receipts in here, and you're going to do those checks. What you're then going to do is you're going to look at the inventory. Now, there's two ways I see that businesses do inventory, and this is the risky bit. I'll start with the correct way. They've actually got the products by the groups with the rebates against them, with an accrual against them. So they've got 1.2 million of inventory, and they've got an accrual of just under 205,000. So they actually have an inventory rebate rate or weighted average of 16.9%. I think everybody knows where I'm going with this. I see businesses using 13.9% multiplied by the 1.2 million and saying, hey, I'm provided, I'm all good. I've netted down my inventory value by 169,000. Well, 169,000 is out by nearly 36,000 or 17.4% of the actual number. The business I worked in previous, we did actually, thankfully, we did it the right way. The difference for us was 7% between these two numbers, and that was in construction materials, because what we stocked and what we purchased were very different, and that was millions. It was about a quarter of our annual profit in terms of the difference. I appreciate it's a one-off timing adjustment, but it can explain why rebate is moving in a business's P&L and can't be explained why it's moving in a way that follows normal trading. It's because if they're doing it this way, a mix in stock versus a mix in purchases actually influences the overall profit and loss position. So it's really important to make sure a business is applying the same rebate terms to its mix of buying as it is to its mix of stocking. So wrapping this up, the common risks I see, it's an absolute absence of an inventory provision altogether. That can just be because they are cash accounting for their rebates, which technically means they're wrong on two counts. They haven't actually got a receivable, and they haven't actually got anything in their inventory. I mean, we will all say two wrongs don't make a right. It's probably better than doing one and not the other, but still not perfect. My prior point, high level calculation and assumptions on inventory provisions. Next one, missing customer contracts. If you're paying out rebates, It's that those customer contracts have not made it to the finance team. So that kind of completeness check. Allocating rebates that are received where a business doesn't actually separate out its years when it comes to receivables. It's just literally making an accrual and tipping money into a big pot, with the hope that that big pot one day settles itself out. I much prefer to see an annual accrual, close it, move on. And if you don't close it, you know you got it wrong. Obscure contract wording makes it very difficult for finance professionals and sometimes can actually put them in dispute with their commercial colleagues. I think you will tend to see a theme. There'll either be hardly any of it in a business, or there could be a lot of it. If there's a lot of it, it would, to me, it would just raise the kind of the risk profile. And then finally, phasing and matching of rebates to activity. If a business is finding itself in a tough time, you're just looking to make sure they're not trying to pull forward rebate earnings, which in some of those high profile cases I mentioned earlier, that does happen. With that being said, from an enable perspective, one of the things we've developed and we're now offering is when we accrue for your rebates from suppliers, we'll also tell you how much is in your stock still. So that point I've mentioned, that for us, we're now offering that as a solution as part of our product, because we recognize it's great telling a business how much you've earned, but if we're not telling you when to actually release it into your profit and loss account, then you've only got half the kind of the jigsaw. So we're now providing distributors or retailers with the second half of the calculation. So really pleased we're doing that, because it was a real pain for me when I had to do one bit inside rebate software and the other bit was on spreadsheets. I wish I'd had this earlier, but yeah, it's this is now being released by Enable. So really pleased. And so hopefully, if you're in internal audit and you're using Enable, definitely speak to your teams about this.